We actually do public meetings, open town halls, and what you hear with the economy, with the 9.1% unemployment, Iowa's in better shape than most. We're about 6% unemployment because the ag community is doing extraordinarily well. But the fact of the matter is the uncertainty out there with taxes in the future, what is going to happen a year from December 31st when the tax relief that was put in place with the Bush administration all expires, what the new 3.8% increase with the president's health care bill, what that's going to mean as far as on top of capital gains and dividends. The uncertainty out there is huge. But by far the biggest problem that you hear from small business people are the fact that the regulations are totally out of control. And what they're seeing as far as the wet blanket that this administration, they're working overtime. The fact of the matter is what the president knows, what the administration knows, is that with us in control and majority of the House of Representatives, they're not going to get the crazy cap and trade, crazy cap and trade concept through, which you so strongly supported. She used to be my friend. But anyway, but they're not going to get those types of programs, those regulations put in place through legislation. So what they're going to do is do the same thing, but rather than legislation, through regulation. And it is very, very destructive. You hear it all the time from any small business person. The small businesses today, it costs about, I guess they say about $10,600 per employee to comply with the regulations that are out there. Just the simple amount of reporting. I stopped with a local banker, medium-sized bank, a few weeks ago. He brought out 2 volumes, about 6 inches high, each of them, of new compliance from the Dodd-Frank bill. And he's basically saying we're either going to have to merge, we're going to have to hire more people to just comply with all of this stuff that's going on. I wish Oxley was here because I think Dodd-Frank could even be worse than Sarbanes-Oxley. But anyway, maybe not. I don't. Yeah, I know, Jimmy. It is all your fault. But no, it's horrendous. And when you look at what you've watched, we've been passing bills trying to stop EPA from implementing a bunch of new regulations that are going to be extremely expensive, destructive to the private economy, to greatly increase energy costs, and we're going to continue to do that. I've got some legislation that Jacob's working very, very hard on as far as the regulatory burden to really try to bring some common sense, to have actually cost-benefit, real analysis put in place where you're going to have at least 6 months once they come out with their analysis so that you can look at it, you can figure out if they're using real numbers, you can figure out if this actually makes any sense, and then bring your thoughts and your analysis to the table rather than just have the bureaucracy out there. I think that's extraordinarily important. When we're going to have it's pretty much to repeal, it's kind of like a BRAC commission type program where you can bring issues, regulations to the forefront. We could put them together, make sure that Congress actually has an input. We'd vote up and down on those things. And also any major new regulations that come down, that Congress would have to vote on those as far as new regulations also and have it signed by the President, because we have really ceded our responsibility constitutionally to the administration. And the most dangerous words in any piece of legislation are "the Secretary shall determine." As you folks know, that is the killer that basically gives them a free hand to interpret what the intent of any legislation was, and to basically, with their agenda, write regulations that fit their ideas as to what should be going on in the private sector, rather than to what the reality in the real world is. It's very scary, I think, to see people in the administration who have no experience in the real world, that are writing regulations, have their own agendas out there, and really believe that they are so much smarter than everybody else is. It is a scary thought, and it is the biggest problem we have as far as job creation, as far as getting this economy going. It's just the fear that people have about what's the next shoe to drop, and how are you ever going to survive when they keep adding costs that have no benefit to our society. We're also have introduced what we call the Less Government Act, and if anybody's familiar with the Lean Six Sigma, basically introducing private sector initiatives to the federal government to actually have people, force them to report on what they're doing to make government efficient. In the private sector, you'll save 20 to 25% of the costs of putting a product on the market or a service out there. Why not apply that to the federal government? We have done it in some cases in the Defense Department, where they, like the MRAP vehicle, they were producing about 5 a day. They applied this procedure to it, and the same number of people, the same factory, they were able to put out about 69 vehicles a day. Just with efficiency, getting the people involved and holding people accountable. So we're going to be pushing very, very hard as far as trying to reform the government itself. Everybody understands we have to have services provided by the government, but why not do it in an efficient way that actually makes sense, that actually gets the services out to people without killing us as far as our debt. When we look at the fact today, and the reason I'm running again and taking on a considerable challenge here is the fact that I do have, like Shannon said, and I know I'm way too young, but four grandchildren and another one on the way in January. And the future, I don't know how many of you here, think that you have it better than what your parents, your everybody, I would think. You've had more opportunities. How many of you think that if we continue on the path we are with the kind of deficits we have, that our kids and grandchildren will have an opportunity like we had, or more opportunity? It simply can't happen, because we are going to be so indebted, debt owned to places like China. We're going to look like Greece. We simply cannot function if we continue the path we're on. Almost 40 cents out of every dollar the federal government spends this year will be borrowed money. And this, the super committee, wow, if they get their work done, you know what's going to happen? Rather than being, in 10 years, $25 trillion in debt, we'll be $24 trillion and save the world. Okay.